What's up, guys? The Art of Streaming here, and last night we got episode 4 of The Last of Us, and we saw another expansion of the story told by HBO. There were a few differences from the game that, again, I think were handled extremely well by HBO. Like my last video, there are going to be major spoilers going forward, so if you haven't seen episode 4 yet, you might want to save this video for a little bit later. For those of you who have seen it, make sure you like and subscribe to get my weekly breakdowns and also to get other recommendations of some things that I'm watching on streaming. So let's jump right on into it. Season 4 opened with Ellie practicing her gun skills in a gas station bathroom, reminding us that she had actually taken the weapon from Bill's house without Joel's knowledge. She also found a joke book, which some of you may actually remember from being in the game as well. Ellie ends up using these jokes to try to get a stern Joel to open up a little bit, which doesn't exactly work right away. On the road again, we see another scene that is pulled straight from the video game where Ellie ends up finding one of Bill's dirty magazines in the backseat of the truck. One of the major differences between the game and the show is in these scenes we notice that they aren't anywhere near New England anymore, which actually shows that a pretty good amount of time has passed since they've been on the road. They pull off the road to camp where Joel ends up telling Ellie that he's not as worried about infected out there as he is of people. Ellie tries to break the ice again with another pun, but Joel ends up beating her to the punchline of the joke, which kinda shows that Joel is starting to warm up to Ellie a little bit. He then reassures her that no people are going to find them out in the woods. Once on the road again the next day, Joel ends up closing up to Ellie again and ends up calling her cargo rather than family. This is where they reached a blocked highway and they are forced to take a detour through Kansas City. Now, if you remember the game, the setting of these events actually takes place in Pittsburgh. Much like the game, we meet a group called the Hunters who are pretending to be injured on the side of the road in order to get Joel and Ellie to help them. Joel doesn't fall for this and ends up speeding off. While driving away, he is attacked by hunters hiding on rooftops and the surrounding area. He ends up crashing into a laundromat where him and Ellie are forced to fight off the hunters. Joel tells Ellie to hide while he fights off the rest of them. Joel ends up getting overpowered by one of the hunters, and Ellie comes out of hiding with gun in hand and ends up shooting one of the hunters. Joel ends up taking the gun from Ellie. After not too many words between Joel and Ellie, you can tell that Joel doesn't really know how to navigate the conversation, so he just avoids it altogether. Now we meet a new edition of The Last of Us who actually wasn't in the game before. It's the ruthless leader of the hunters, a woman named Kathleen. Kathleen seems to be hunting a man named Henry, who ended up turning her brother into Fedra, which ended up getting him killed. Kathleen seems to be driven by revenge and rage, which ultimately leads to her paranoia of thinking that Joel and Ellie are actually mercenaries who work with this Henry guy. After finding her dead people in the laundromat, Kathleen is out for blood and sends a small army out to look for Joel and Ellie. While hiding from the hunters, Joel and Ellie have a heartfelt conversation where Joel does his best to apologize for putting Ellie in the tough situation of having to shoot one of the hunters. This is where Ellie tells him that it's actually not her first time. Joel decides to give her her weapon back with a quick safety lesson. They both move on and end up finding their way into a high-rise building where they decide to climb 33 floors and settle down for the night. Ellie tells Joel one last joke, but even though he tries to fight it as much as he can't help but laugh at the joke before going to sleep. This shows that even though Joel called her cargo earlier in the episode, he's finally starting to warm up to her. At the conclusion of the episode, Joel and Ellie are woken up being held at gunpoint by a young boy, and then the episode ends. I won't go into who this young boy is in case you haven't played the game, but I am really excited to see how HBO handles the next episode of The Last of Us. So far, I don't think there's been a single bad episode of this show. Despite major changes and additions to the storyline, I think HBO has been absolutely knocking it out of the park. But I'd like to hear what you guys have to say about it down in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. This has been The Art of Streaming, and I'll see you guys next time.